Welcome, listeners. Today, we'll journey to a tropical paradise with a hidden secret that has puzzled even the most seasoned explorers. Imagine hiking through lush vegetation on a remote island, only to stumble upon something so extraordinary it defies everything you thought you knew about nature. A seemingly ordinary adventure turns into a once-in-a-lifetime discovery that will leave you questioning what else might be out there, waiting to be found. So, settle in, and let's uncover the mystery of Christmas Island together. Confused by his reaction, Mark slowly put his phone down and turned around. From the corner of his eye, he saw another claw swing towards him. It was huge and lined with sharp spikes. His heart pounded at the sight of them. What on earth were they? But before we start, smash the like button and make sure to subscribe if you haven't, and hit that notification bell so that you won't miss any new stories. It was another beautiful morning for 32-year-old Mark Peer as he got ready to go on a hike with his friend David. They planned to find a secret hot spring hidden within the Christmas Island National Park. For as long as Mark could remember, he loved to explore nature. However, he had no idea that one day his passion would lead him to this shocking discovery. Despite its winter-themed name, Christmas Island is actually a small tropical island in the Indian Ocean between Indonesia and Australia. Mark moved to the island 3 years ago, adding one more person to its population of about 1,400 people. He didn't initially intend to stay for long, but he fell in love with the place. Little did he know the incredible secret it was hiding. Mark woke up early to another beautiful sunny day on Christmas Island. He got dressed and poured coffee, already looking forward to the fun Saturday he had planned with David. He quickly ate breakfast and left with his bag packed and his face beaming. He was completely unaware that his day wouldn't turn out quite like he had planned it in his head. As soon as Mark met David, they headed out on their adventure to find the hot spring that the locals told them about. It was the island's best-kept secret, and only the people who stayed on the island long enough were told about its location. Mark saw it as a rite of passage, but there was nothing right about what he'd soon encounter. It was about an hour into their walk along the coastline. The winding path was flanked with lush, vibrant vegetation and towering mossy trees. Then, just ahead, Mark saw a large rock blocking their way. It stuck out like a sore thumb for several reasons. The placement was weird. Who would set the walkway planks all the way to the large obstacle instead of going around it? Or why not remove the boulder entirely? Also, the wood slats seemed to fit around it perfectly. Maybe it was a special feature or rare mineral. One thing for certain was that it was quite lovely. The bright blues and earthy browns set off a light bulb in his head, something he probably shouldn't do, but the idea was too good to pass up. Even a tiny part of the stone would make a beautiful necklace charm. There was one spiky piece that looked like it would be easy to snap off, shove in his pocket, and be on their way. Mark reached down, his fingers barely grazing the surface. Something moved. He gave the surface a light tap. All of a sudden, the entire eerie thing shifted, somehow got bigger, and scurried into the brush. Mark let out an echoing yelp and jumped back, tumbling off the pathway and into the dirt. That was no boulder. His friend whipped around. "What's wrong?" Mark pointed to a clump of thick vegetation. It moved. The rock thing moved. David looked between the greenery and his friend like Mark had just sprouted 5 heads and started quoting Shakespeare. The shock fizzled away and was replaced with an overwhelming sense of curiosity. He had to find out what it was. Mark crept to the spot where the thing had escaped, pulling the low-hanging branches out of the way. There, in the shadows, was something that could have crept into anyone's nightmares. Long legs with jagged spikes poked out of a hard, bug-like body. Mark froze again, praying it didn't latch onto his face and lay eggs in his stomach. It moved again. A huge claw appeared. The movements were jarring and erratic, like a scared robot backed into a corner. His reaction wasn't the most intelligent, more like a curious child finding something new. He grabbed a stick and tried to poke it. The claw opened. It latched onto the wood and snapped it clean in half. Mark scuttled backwards, not wanting the same thing to happen to his hand. David jumped to the other side of the path, his eyes as wide as Mark's. The foolish poking, however, gave them a good look at the creature. "It can't be," he said, recalling an old memory and reaching for his phone. He had to look this up online to be sure. Its big boulder-like shell swayed under the green canopy of leaves. It looked like a crab, spider, and alien had a baby. Mark had seen large crustaceans before, but they had only been about the size of something you would find at a specialty Japanese seafood market or at Red Lobster. It couldn't be a crab. It had to be something entirely different. Its shell was a mesmerizing display of colors. After getting a better look, he saw hues of orange, red, blue, and black. Its huge legs grew out from its body in an impressive show of evolution and strength. Mark crept closer until he was right next to the creature and could get it framed in the camera lens. "It looks like something out of the dinosaur age or something," David commented, still keeping his distance. There were creatures on Earth who were older than humans could dream, or whose species had survived longer than imaginable. Was this one of them? Prehistoric crabs dated back to 95 million years ago. Mark remembered reading about their extinction when he was younger, but more importantly, he remembered their strange features. He took note of its huge size, bent claws, big eyes that had no sockets, and leg-like mouth. His heart started to pound. Another bit of trivia pulled at his brain. In 2019, scientists in America discovered a fossil of this prehistoric crab. Its species is called Calamara perplexa, which translates to perplexing, beautiful chimera. This is due to its vibrant colors and unique appearance. Was he really witnessing the reappearance of a lost species? There was only one way to find out. He took a deep breath, reached out, and grabbed it by the back of the body. It didn't squirm as much as he had expected, but it really didn't like to be picked up. Mark called for his friend to take a photo of him and his new buddy. His friend called him insane, but still snapped a picture. There were only two places it made sense to send the photo, one to his social media and the other to an expert. He scrambled with the email attachment and hit send like his life depended on it. Sure, he had found a long-lost species, if not the ancient Calamara perplexa. He quickly called the National Park Center. The online interest immediately exploded, but what viewers halfway around the world had no idea about was that there was something else hidden nearby, something that would soon show itself and make the two men want to run for their lives. The photo landed with crab expert Max Orchard, who had spent over 22 years on Christmas Island National Park working with world-leading researchers. You see, Christmas Island was something of an anomaly when it came to the numerous different species of crabs that live there. For Orchard, discovering a new species on Christmas Island wasn't too far-fetched, so the email immediately got him excited. Because of his profession, Orchard knew that de-extinction was possible. Also known as species revivalism, this is the process where scientists can generate an organism that either resembles or is the exact extinct species. If this wasn't a case of de-extinction, Mark could have found a rare and endangered species. Although it's easy to think humans have discovered every creature on Earth, that's simply and sometimes surprisingly not the case. Meanwhile, Mark and David were about to get the scare of their lives. "Don't move, dude," David choked. Confused by his reaction, Mark looked around and quickly spotted the source of his friend's fear. They weren't alone. Another one scurried out of the bushes. A meter-long claw swung at them. Mark yelled and dropped his phone. The two men raced onto a massive stone to get away from the swaying, clicking creature. They hoped the boulder they escaped to wasn't also another massive animal in disguise. There they sat for hours, waiting for Max Orchard to arrive. When Max Orchard came to the scene, Mark pointed him to the creatures that lay close to them. With a smile and loud laugh, Max Orchard told Mark that he knew exactly what they were. They were coconut crabs, a species of crab that have lived on Christmas Island for decades, but Mark had picked one up. Was he in danger? "The biggest one I've seen is about 4.5 kilos and about 1 meter across," Orchard said. "No one really knows for sure how old they are." "The 2 to 3 kilos crabs are about 50 years old," he told Mark. They are a gigantic cousin to the water-based hermit crab that we all know and love. Then he asked Mark to show him his hands. Although many people wouldn't have dared to pick up one of these giant crabs, they are actually friendly giants. Orchard made sure that Mark didn't have any cuts. Otherwise, a tetanus shot may be required, as with all cuts you may get from wildlife. Although Mark's hands were fine, Orchard did warn him of something else. Orchard told him that they have a tendency to steal. He pointed to his phone, which was now firmly within the claws of one of the crabs. Gently, Orchard grabbed the phone from the unassuming thief and explained their odd behavior to steal and crush whatever unfortunate locals and tourists may have left behind. They were basically like raccoons or mischievous monkeys, at least in the way they nab things. Another term would be incorrigible kleptomaniacs. They have been known to steal cutlery, pots and pans, bottles of alcohol, shoes, camp stoves, machetes, wristwatches, and countless other objects. The reason is actually pretty simple. It's a survival instinct. They don't want to wait around and eat in places where predators could be lurking. So they do something interesting and annoying. They grab anything they can get their claws on, drag it back to their home, and then test if they can eat it. If they can't, they cast it aside. And if you think a house on Christmas Island is safe from these guys, you're wrong. These naughty crabs will go as far as to snap open garbage bins or even break into homes if they smell something good. Mark and David didn't know it at the time, but their escape to the large rock wasn't really going to save them if the crabs had been aggressive in any way, or at least very curious. Why? Even if the creatures are fairly gentle, they have an unsettling ability. Their many powerful legs allow them to jump and climb trees. The reason they get their name coconut crab is because they can climb palm trees upwards of 6 meters high so they can get their hands on the tasty treats above. Imagine walking through the forest and seeing one of these right above your head. But that's not all. Over the years, Max Orchard had responded to numerous reports of theft in the park. When I first went to Christmas Island in the early 90s, the Army came over to do some training on the island. They had just been issued with new Stye rifles with these plastic butts, Orchard explained. I got a call from the commanding officer who said someone had been out there and stolen one of their rifles. The culprit? You guessed it, the coconut crab, aka the robber crab. They found the missing Stye rifle sometime later. The crabs dragged it off and crushed it. This peculiar behavior becomes especially funny once you learn their age. Coconut crabs are not only the largest land-based crabs on Earth, but they are also the longest living. They can easily live up to 120 years old, so it is very likely that the crab Mark picked up was older than he was. Although they're not dangerous, their claws can still cause harm. But Mark was lucky. Mark left the encounter completely unscathed. He also wondered why the locals didn't tell him to watch out for them. When he asked, they said that they wanted him to find out more about the island himself. It wasn't long before Mark's post of his exciting find gained even more attention online. Mark's picture of the mysterious and unique beast caused quite a stir. If you didn't live on Christmas Island or have an interest in crabs, you would have never guessed what Mark was holding.